Good morning, ladies and gents. So, we're going to kind of pick up where we left off yesterday. I found a system called Dialogger that a long time ago I did some Facebook promotional work for. They were trying to get the word out, and they essentially said anybody on Facebook, or anybody, yeah, I think it was just Facebook, anybody on Facebook who says, hey, look, there's this new thing and it's awesome, got a free copy. So I got a free copy. Granted, it was a Unity 4.x thing, but still, Unity does a pretty good job of updating things to their 5.x version, so it wasn't too bad to get that all updated and working. And it's definitely neat. I love tools like this that go so far as to have, like, here's an editor, and inside this editor we have the entire setup of all the information you could ever need. You know, where each choice goes, and how you can see a bunch of them tie together into certain places, and there's a lot to this. And so I definitely want to see if maybe I can make use of this, mostly because the tool seems to be very well developed. But the one thing that I don't like about it is the fact that a lot of information, like a lot of information, lives inside of static classes. And for some stuff, static classes are fine, but for a system like this where I want different NPCs to be able to have different conversations and different variables that affect each of these, it makes it a little difficult, because suddenly every time that I might want somebody to say something, I have to go through a bunch of static hoops to jump, and I'm not sure I'm a huge fan of that, honestly. So I'm still trying to kind of pick out the bits and pieces that I like and figure out exactly what I need to handle in here. I might even need to mess with some of their stuff, but I'm not quite sure yet. I'm still detailing that myself. But it looks like an insanely powerful tool that I would love to have access to if I could get, you know, if I could get this running, I'd be really happy. And to some degree, I already have it working. You'll see that if I actually jump into scene and take a step forwards, that the first thing that happens if I hide the NPC window is that I actually have the Dialogger test information finding its way into the description text. So I know it works, and I know that the information makes it through. I just need to make sure that A, this text is readable, because that looks, well, I don't know. I say it looks kind of tiny, but then again, if I go full screen, that's not too small. That's also not terribly large either, so maybe I'll still size that up. But we at least are able to pump information from the Dialogger plugin into Unity, which is nice. It's a good starting point at least. We also maybe want to unify where our description text comes from and goes to. You'll note that during combat it's one spot, so whoops, if I don't talk to the NPC, one thing I just couldn't help but notice is that okay, so I pick all my actions, and then I have a new window for all this information to get presented in. So what I'm kind of tempted to do is make this window a little smaller, and then take this away and just put the text on the background directly. That was essentially my idea for what I wanted to do. Interesting, a claw move that missed. That's rare. Granted, now the monsters are kind of gonna beat the snot out of my guys. Oops. But yeah, so that's kind of the plan. A lot of NPC work, a lot of making sure that those stuff looks kind of messy right now, that we can kind of clean it up and make it look nice and get the NPCs able to talk pretty easily. So I'm going to kill that because A, that combat looks dismal for me, and B, because we have things to do. Let's see. What if I make that text that much larger? I really need to find a font. That's the other part of this. I need to find a font that, I don't know, that just works with what I am attempting to do. Because right now you'll note that Arial looks so out of place. Like, that alone looks better. Using Tahoma looks actually pretty decent. I say decent because it doesn't look great, but it's something, right? It's an improvement. Let's give that a little more space to work with, just in case, and remove the test text words. So, wow, my throat's unhappy. I don't know why, but it is. Alright, so one of the things I'm definitely tempted to do is this description text is something that a lot of elements are going to need to be able to interact with. They're going to have to be able to modify and set and mess with the text inside of there. So I'm actually going to make its own singleton script just for the sake of having that, or I could make a singleton class. That might not be the worst thing in the world either, honestly. Yeah, let's do the singleton class first. See if we can do a generic accessor, and then show in-game. What? Sorry, Nikolai, what are you asking about? Because I could definitely show you in-game what I'm talking about, but it's kind of difficult without some of the aspects in place. Let's make this a templated singleton class. We will have a public static T, which will be called instance, and it will be a get, and a protected set. On start, if instance is not equal to null, oh, talking about the font? Give me a sec. I'll show you the font in a moment. It's just kind of cannot convert type singleton T to T. Did I not do that template class first? Or correctly? I could have sworn that's all you had to do in C# in order to make a template class. Yeah. Interesting. So it looks like it's having instance this. Okay, so T is whatever generic class I put in, right? Versus this would be a singleton of T. I see what's going on. Okay, instead, I have to, or not instead, but this Cybertech has it right. I need to do an as cast. So essentially, as, for those who don't know, what? T can't be used with as because it doesn't have the class type constraint, nor, oh, I also have to add, let's see here, where T is what? I want to make sure I'm doing this right, but I could have sworn. I mean, what's funny is I've done this before, so something here clearly isn't working quite right. Interesting. Okay, where T is a mono behavior, that would be one way to do it. Yeah, and that would ensure. I think that's going to be the way to do it. I just don't remember the where syntax. It's been a while since I've actually. Oh, okay. Remove this colon and we're set. Cool. So that allows us to do singletony things. From there, we now can do where T is a mono behavior, and I don't need the singleton itself to be a mono behavior. It does kind of make me wish that there was something else. In terms of font, Nicolao, let's see. So right now, it's pretty simple. It's this. Actually, I don't even have to run the game to show you because it's a lot easier to just show you what I got in editor. Like, that's what I have right now. Pretty simple stuff. That's kind of what the... Yeah, no, I can't help but note that A, my window is too large, as far as I can tell. And also, so that means the description text doesn't have enough room to do what we want it to do. So I'm tempted to take this and shrink it down even further. Let's see, right now... I'll probably definitely need to shrink it further than that. Let's say 275. So we're gonna, I hate to take that much space off of our image. That's the only reason I don't like this as much, is because that is a lot of room to remove. And then from the bottom we'll say, we'll do this somewhat unevenly. I think 230 would be the way to keep this in the right ratio. 480, yeah, that's roughly the same ratio as before. So what this does allow us to do is to move a bunch of these pieces and it also gives us a little more room for our description text. The problem is I want the description text to have about that much room, which means that by the time we're done, this bottom decoration backing should actually be like there, which means that I need to shrink this down even further. Oops, wrong direction. Because the smaller I make the view, the downside being that the smaller I make the view, the harder it is for the player to pick out details. So when I play and it's this size, and I'm just gonna actually So when I'm playing it's this size, it's actually not that bad. I still feel like I have a decent amount of space going on here. So that's actually not the worst thing. Yes, more view space is obviously going to be better, but at the same time, I feel like this is something that doesn't look all that bad still. I still have, granted the aspect ratio is a little off, but we can fix that. Let's see here. So the party view, let's crunch it down a little further on each side, just to I don't want to make this thing too small. And Cybertech, you're making plenty of sense. I just need to get my own branding gear as well. You're not the only one who just, I know I definitely just woke up. If the player, Nicolael's saying if those player avatars are your party, you could move them to one side stacked and save a lot of space. I could, the one downside being that now I'd have an asymmetrical screen. That might not be a bad thing, honestly. And I definitely have thought about moving the party to a certain format. The one thing I want to keep in mind is that this demonstrates that you kind of have a front row and a back row in the party. And if I want to have any kind of distance system set up, then I'm going to need that. I can't get that on -400. If I have any kind of distance system for weapons, I want to make sure that that distance system is well approximated inside the game as well. It's just one of those more difficult things to show off, so to speak. Let's get that bottom filler further down so it covers stuff. There we go. Now things look a little stretched. I'm a little not worried about this. I'm mostly not too worried about this. And this does give us the amount of space we wanted for our text, right? We can now have, I think, 5 lines, and that's really what I wanted. More stuff. Yes, thank you. Reschedule, because Windows, you pick the worst time to do this. What's sad is I update every day, practically, and it still just complains that, like, oh, I need to figure this out and do it at a different time. Windows, you can be so goofy sometimes, and not in a good way. Whatever. Yeah, I'm not too sure about the metal myself either. I'm just kind of using it right now because at the moment I've got nothing else. I could go with... Actually, you know what? Let's rip out the sides and bottom and just leave the metal as a screen surrounder, because I do at least have black text here, and that's not going to be too bad. Although I can't help but notice that this goes all the way to the edge on each side unnecessarily. And you'll notice that things are crunching when I do this. It's because I'm using raw images, and raw images have some interesting stuff going on when it comes to how they handle their vertex, or not vertex, sorry, their UVs. There we go. For now, I think I'm going to leave it like this, if only because A, it's a little easier to read, and B, it at least helps me concentrate on what I'm working on, and then I'll come up with something else while we're between streams. Alright, so back to that singleton for a moment, where T is a mono behavior, and this is a mono behavior. That is not the right manager, singleton manager. So I'm trying to get cutesy with this thing, but okay, I figured it out. It is a it's a mono behavior IOUR, where T is a monobehavior. This last one is irrelevant. I actually don't know if singleton, like a singleton cute class like this, is going to be something that I'm really attached to or not. I like it because, well, it means that I can now have singletons by just inheriting into something, which is nice. The downside being that if I want to do something with any of this, it's going to be a little difficult. So, for example, you'll note that our party has an instance equals this, and then it's also got its own details here. So what we would do is say, well, this is a singleton of a monobehavior, or of type monobehavior. Or sorry, no, that's a singleton of type party. And this does not have to be there anymore because, surprise, surprise, we set our own singleton. I can't help but note that there's a ton of errors floating around because of the Dialogger plugin. We might want to dive in at some point and clean that up. Maybe I'll dive in and clean that up on my own. Let's see. Nicolao, just mentioning his worry that the info from the UI and the bars is a little small compared to everything else. Yes and no. I don't want the bars to completely overwhelm everything. That's my only other worry. I did just have a thought, though. If I could take these bars... no, I like the top to bottom bars, though. I was thinking maybe I could put the bars underneath the character object so that I could then have them go horizontally underneath the character. I'm actually not sure if I'm a fan of that or not, though. Because that's an interesting space saver, right? Our big thing right now is that, well, actually, no, I'm not entirely worried about... Whoa, what happened here? Kind of curious. Party.instance. What did it have trouble with? The character window is trying to get the description text, which it says comes from the party instance's UI root, transform find child description text. This wasn't broken before. Oh, I just realized. I think I may... No, start. Base start is inaccessible due to its protection level. So that's another caveat of these things. Okay, yeah, you know what? I don't like this singleton class anymore. It's not actually helping me with pretty much anything. It's just kind of being... it's being a pain, for lack of better words. If I want to create... if I want to create my own singletons. Sorry, I need to finish that sentence. If I try and set my own singletons, you know what? I'm just going to do it by hand. At least so I have... yeah, there are cleaner ways to do it if you're not using Unity. And I can't get over the way that Unity does certain things, and sometimes I just want something to work quietly and do the job, and when it doesn't, I just kind of get fed up with it and throw it out. Okay, I'm not seeing errors. Yeah, Nicolao, this is far from my last form of what I want this UI to look like. I'm still trying to figure out, A, how I want this to look, and B, just where I want a lot of the information to go. Because the other thing to note is that while the description text is sitting here like this, And it is definitely nice to have it in this format. It's taking up a lot of space, and that's going to be space that during a decent portion of the game might end up honestly being blank. I might have to put some other UI there, but the big thing to keep in mind is that it's going to look like this, except for times when I do stuff like when I hit the talk button here, and I'm just going to unmaximize this for a second to hide the NPC window. Like, that's what it's going to look like if I have, you know, an NPC talking to me. Is it's going to say, oh, okay, here's the NPC text, and then when I have my NPC text, now I'm going to print it on this lower screen, and I'm just going to kind of loop on that. And that's really all there is to it. So, yeah, the UI is definitely such a large part of this game, I cannot get lazy about it. In the meantime, I also have to keep in mind that I still want to keep making forward progress on a lot of this, because stuff is going to keep changing as I find that I've been, you know, working on things. So, and that's kind of why I have like two different systems right now. When I talk to the AI, that's one way to, or talk to the NPC, that's one time that combat text comes up. When I do stuff like combat itself, that's why you'll note that this looks entirely different. And so it's like, okay, we need to figure out what my standard is going to look like here. Because right now, as is, I have two different ways of showing information, and I'm not a huge fan of that. I really don't want that to be the case. I'd like to unify my text in one place, have a nice looking font, have a good spacing, and have it appear in part of the game that doesn't look contrived or out of place. Yeah. Interesting. So Cybertech's talking about how he's implemented some of his singletons, and he says that he started for the singletons is to have them lazy find and cache the object in scene within the instance property. That's interesting. That's another way to do it. It definitely keeps the processing from being on start and having this giant load on start. And that's I can definitely see how that can be cleaner in its own way. Alright, anyway, so what we were aiming for in the first place. Let's get a little more functionality done in the NPC encounter stuff, because for right now, as nice as it is, I can't help but note that, like, I still can't leave if I click on the NPC button here. I can't walk away from this encounter, so that's probably something I should handle. At least so I can keep testing other things within the same game set. So, what I'm going to do is let's bring up that UI that we were working on yesterday. Here's our NPC window. We have a leave button, which the NPC window itself is going to need its own script. If I don't have one already. It looks like I have one already, so I'm a little surprised, honestly. Let's see here. Action choices. Does this class even contain anything? I'm actually really curious. Okay, no, it's just the base template. Great. Let's do a few things. One, I want my separators. Inside the UI functions, obviously we want a leave NPC interaction, or leave NPC encounter. I don't know. Just leave should be its own function, regardless of what the details on that are. And this is going to need to do a few things. One, we grab our party by instance, because this is one of the few singletons that I actually agree with. I gotta say, I don't like using singletons when I can. I always try and avoid it, because in most cases they get abused very quickly and easily. The party is the one single case where it's like, okay, this is going to be around 90% of the time. I don't feel bad having an instance of this. and clearing the party instance when you're in a menu, when you quit the game and go to main menu, is going to be super easy. And I don't have to worry about that thought much. So end NPC interaction. Also, is there anything else? Obviously, oh right, we probably want to destroy the game object associated with the NPC window, just so we can get rid of that. God, these warnings are bothering the heck out of me. I'm going to dig through those tonight and fix those up, because that's annoying. That is incredibly annoying. I also can't help but note that I not only have left the stuff in the scene, but I also didn't ever set the button to actually leave the NPC encounter. That's an important thing. And now if I hit leave, cool. It does leave my text set like this, but that's mostly because I'm just testing things and playing with that. That's not something I'm too worried about. If I really wanted to remove that, I could. No, I'm going to leave it for now, mostly because I can just comment this line out and be done. See, this is what I don't like. Note how everything in here is static. Dialogger.initialize, dialogger.events.onTextPhase. Well, what happens now when I have certain information that is tied to a specific NPC that I really want to wait on? You know, if I have a different font for a different NPC, if I have different setups for different NPCs in terms of information that they may or may not know, putting that all into a static class is a little frightening, because now I have to store everything in one place. And I don't like that idea of storing everything in one place. It's kind of the same with a singleton, right? It forces you out to, for the most part, to use only a single instance of that, thus singleton. And that puts a lot of constraints on the use cases for a class that you create. That's why so many people consider it an abused tactic, is because when you use something like a singleton, it ties you down a lot to some very kind of ugly things. Alright, so leaving works, except that we don't remove the NPC right now. Yeah, and Cybertech has another good point. I'm assigning an event, but what happens when I leave? What happens when I re-enter the encounter? There's a lot of stuff that you have to take care of with singletons, versus if this were, say, a game object that I just destroyed afterwards, the events go away. Nobody cares. The game object loses all its references. If it can't refer to anything, it's gone. So, yeah. This is just all test code right here, so I don't mind it sitting here so much. I still need to clean up a lot of the code in here, specifically with the dialogger stuff. I'm actually tempted to go into the dialogger code, even though it's not mine, but I have source code access, and actually clean up the class itself. You'll note it's somewhat large, so I'm hesitant to do that, but at the same time, there's some bits and pieces to it where, I don't know, you'll just kind of note that there's some really weird stuff going on in here, and I'm not the happiest. I'm just afraid that it would also take an incredibly long time to go through and clean up all of this, because there's just so much to it that I'm just a little unsure about it. But yeah, global getters and setters for booleans. Scary. I don't know. I'll keep thinking about it. Alright. I have 2 copies of Visual Studio open. Thanks, Visual Studio. Oh, I see. Can I close one of these now? I'd really appreciate that. Okay, so the character window. Oh, right. We need to remove our NPC when we're done with the NPC interaction. So our NPC window, we're ending the interaction. I'm curious if anybody has a tie to the actual NPC we've created, or if that's just kind of something that gets lost in time. And it looks like it does get lost right now. So I am going to go so far as to have the NPC window take care of the NPC. And that's really what I want to ensure that somebody has a handle to the object that I need to delete when all is said and done. So here's our game object. It's going to be our NPC. We are not only going to destroy ourselves, but destroy the NPC. Just clean everything up on our way out. I always think these are errors. I look at it and go, oh god, something's wrong. And it's like, no, it's just an error. Use title content instead. Oh, okay, cool. Can I just like dot title content dot text? Hey, there we go. One less warning. Let's see if I can clear like the most basic simple of these warnings real quick. I don't like having warnings in my code. They tend to mean something's terribly wrong. Yes, and all of these look like they use the same thing. Okay, so title content dot text. I'm just going to copy this and say you and you. And that is a hugely long if statement, so I'm just going to push everything here to its own line. It's a little hard to read, so I'm going to push that there. Wow, some of this is just messy. Ugh. Whatever. It's what I get for free code, right? I mean, I did pay $0 for this, and I just did a little free marketing for them. So, and you'll note, when I compile now, no warnings. Nice and clean. I love it. So much better. Nicolel, I'm glad you're enjoying it. I try and kind of talk through and give you guys a stream of consciousness, if only because I know I've seen streamers who just sit here and quietly code. It doesn't seem like the most interesting thing in the world. And it's kind of hard to learn from those coders when they make a mistake or when they're doing something you don't understand. So that's why I'm kind of going through and working on this out loud for the most part. I'm going to close down the dialogger stuff because that's not what we need right now. Oh god, Chakma, I am so sorry. Rebuilding 32-bit code for a 64-bit system is frightening. Doing that in C# is not that bad. C# actually takes care of the worst of it, but it still can throw a lot of warnings. And if you're doing it in C++, God help you, because I've tried that before, and that is a nightmare of things to have to deal with. Okay, so I should be able to walk in when I say leave. Okay, it's still not clearing out. Oh, it's because I'm not setting the NPC object. Durr. Oh boy, sometimes I have moments like this where I just brain turns off and I'm going to just say NPC window.npc. Hey, look at that. There we go. Now that's not the best way to do that, honestly. So do I want to clean it up? Kinda. Yeah, I should. Honestly, what I should be doing instead of there, that's what I should be doing instead. The reasoning why is that putting all those reference steps in there, it's not a ton of extra processing, but it is a little extra, and it's completely unnecessary. So it's not even like this is some kind of optimization that requires, you know, crazy data structures or anything. It just kind of exists, and so I don't really need it to be there. I hit leave, okay. Cool. And I can keep encountering the character as I so please. I can even walk around to the side, and she's still standing on the same square. That's actually kind of neat. Being able to walk to the NPC from any angle and, oh, hi, okay, there you are, and then off we go. I do kind of want my... You'll note that it zooms in on the character. and then takes a while to get back to where it should be. I do want to speed that up. Let's see here. That is going to be my field of view transition speed. Let's double it. I don't want it to be too jarring, but we still want to make sure that it gets back to where it should be fairly quickly. Zooms in quickly enough, it seems like. Okay, it takes 2 to 3 seconds. That's not bad. I like that a lot better than what we had before. I actually just had an idea. Where's... A, Steam, why are you here? Let's get that to go away. B, inside my BitGem stuff, I just realized I have some wood textures that might do the trick. Maybe not. Now that I look at them, I'm not such a huge fan of these. I thought I had some better wood textures that maybe I could use. For example, if I could, and I'm just going to try it for a moment, textures, dump that there, take that into a raw image inside the party UI. Sorry, just random thing hit me out of the blue and I kind of wanted to try it. If I put that there, and then that there-ish, and then did this, would that be a good cover of space? Now granted, we'll have to wrap the UV around 2 or 3 times to make sure that this looks right, but if I take this decoration and put it on underneath everything, I could even go so far as to stretch it a little further probably. I don't know. What do you guys think? That an improvement, or do we think we could do better? Because I'm definitely on the fence about some of these. I'm going to actually keep poking at some of the other textures while I leave this up front. What else do we got? I have this entire thing of textures. You'd think I would remember that I have it and be able to put it to good use. I definitely like it better than, as Cybertech said, the metal tub that I was putting all my player characters in before. I like that. It's a good improvement. The question becomes, is it... that's an interesting looking one. A bunch of chopped logs. And then a bunch of beat up, hacked at wood. Let's see, dungeon floor tiles, other floor tiles. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything I'm terribly excited about, aside from the obvious stuff here. Snowy rocks, water, wall, nah. I need to save those for the actual dungeons I'm going to put together later, because it makes very little sense for me to try and put those in right now. And I do have some ornamental stuff I could put in and try out. I know there's just a ton of textures in here that at some point I need to take a peek at and try out. Definitely more subtle. I like subtle. I could do subtle. I do wish I had end caps for the metal bits here. That is definitely something that I find myself craving at the moment. There's some interesting stuff in here, I gotta say. I'm constantly caught off guard by the stuff that I find in this set. Like, hey, I could have bones if you get into an undead land, you know, switch the party background. That actually might be really cool and incredibly creepy to have. If all of a sudden, let's just play with things for like 10 seconds here. If, say, you're inside the game and you've got... Shift this here. Oh, okay, I see what I was doing. To have something like this sitting around as part of the game, right? It looks all nice and wooded when you're in a wooded area, and then suddenly, oh look, we're in an undead land. And suddenly your background starts looking like that. Obviously, I'd want to play with the contrast and hue and fix it all up, but like that would be kind of creepy. That'd be a little weird, honestly. And maybe a nice touch. It does make the text hard to read right now, but like I said, text is not the final form it should be in right now. So I'll leave it for now. Not 100% sure on it, but for now, I think it's a good touch. It definitely is different from the it's different from the metal, mostly in that because of the color differences, it does feel like it makes the UI a little easier to read. And I know I'm going to spend probably more time than you guys are terribly interested in. Oh, I just realized that door is huge. Holy heck. I might need to size that door down, because right now, let's just say that, whoop, hey, it's a fight. That door is monstrous. Cybertech's asking, could I go for something that's beveled instead of framed, a little like Land of Lore? Yeah, I could definitely go for a bevel. That's interesting. If you look at their background, it's one big piece. It almost looks like their clear is a clear to texture, and that what they do from that point is that they then say, okay, we've cleared to texture, now we're going to redraw all of the different parts of our scene. So they're going to, okay, we're going to redraw our main game texture, we're going to redraw, that's part of the texture, so I assume they don't redraw that. But then they do all the little buttons and the dithering on it and all this information kind of, okay, let's reprint all that back to the screen. Interesting. I've never heard of Land of Lore. You guys have got me beat in information there. I am completely unsure of what that is. Interesting, though. I do like the layout and the look. It has a very structured, structured wasn't the word I was looking for. It just is the word that came out of my mouth. It has a very unified look to it. The color schemes match. Nothing looks terribly out of place. I actually even like the simplicity of these bars. And kind of, honestly, I don't know. I kind of like it better in some ways than my current 3D stuff. Or not 3D, my current UI stuff. And the dithering, God, that's old school. Like the old school dithering they have going on here. Looks very nice. It's a Westwood Studios RPG from '95. Oh, that explains why. I don't think I really got into games until, I want to say '98, probably. It's funny, for a game programmer who's been programming for a long time, the time I've spent playing video games is actually somewhat minor. I think my first game was the original Duke Nukem, which I'm kind of curious when that was now. That was first release. Okay, no, 1991. I've been... Huh. Interesting. I've been gaming longer than I thought I have. I guess I just haven't played a lot of RPGs when it comes to that stuff. I'm just kind of not quite as skilled. Yeah, anyway, I need to stop messing with my my UI, because I know things are going to keep changing drastically, especially when I go hunting for fonts. That alone is going to cause me to rechange how a lot of my UI looks, probably. Just for my sanity, I want to try something real quick. My health, energy, and mana bar. Let's do it on the cleric, because they actually have all three bars. Maybe I mean Duke Nukem 3D? It was not 3D. I played a 2D platformer with Duke Nukem. He was a little guy, tiny little square. You press the fire button. It was this like old school slow bullet that went across the screen. Duke Nukem. I'm pretty sure my parents would have been somewhat terrified had they known that I was playing Duke Nukem 3D. No, my Duke Nukem looked... It's hard to see, but this is what my Duke Nukem looked like. Right? This is the first one. And it was interesting. But once again, just, okay, completely different game, I know. Completely different genre even. But look at this. They've got this unified UI on the outside. It's got its own little quirks and details. You can see the screws and the rivets that hold it in place. You've got bevels into each of the pieces of UI that have information on it, and then they bevel upwards to show off the words on each of these, right? So if you look at how this is constructed, this is actually really similar. Our viewport is inside a beveled area. I don't know what the R stands for. I think that's recording. I think you're technically supposed to be looking at this as if it were through a camera. But yeah, like, this is also using a bevel style for the UI, and it's really, really offset from how a lot of the other stuff looked. So honestly, I'm thinking that maybe a bevel is the way to go, partially just because everyone else does it. But yeah, this is my Duke Nukem. This is my old school. Note how we have the no cigarettes symbol in the back, right? We're back in the age of, you know, winners don't do drugs and stuff like that. Yeah. Good times. Okay. Games I definitely don't miss playing. Mark that off the list. Like, that is definitely something that I would touch for the nostalgia factor only. I went back and tried to play Descent recently. Ha! A, I'm bad at it. B, Descent is really friggin' hard. So that, with the fact that I'm bad at it, and bad at 6-axis controls. Plus, it's a really old game, so it had its quirks. That as a kid, I was a little more tolerant of quirks in games. Now that I'm older and I don't have the time to play everything, I'm a little less tolerant, unfortunately, of issues like that. Okay, so let's look at the interactions we have left with this NPC. So, okay, talk is going to be its own huge thing. That I'm going to keep pushing off for a while. Mostly because I would like to have some kind of dialogue system in place. You can choose what you say, AI responds. Choose what you say, AI responds. That was something that the old Wizardry games did really well, but they also had a parser in there. So you would actually type your answer in when you were talking to an NPC. I don't think I want to go quite that old school. That's a little much for me. So, I think for now, what I definitely want to do or try is trying something similar to the Mass Effect style. I might not go with the radial spinner. I might have just a list of choices, but being able to pick as you go, to pick what you're going to say as you go through the conversation is something that I'm interested in as a whole. It was a nice touch in Mass Effect. I think it will continue to be a nice touch in this game. Pixie's making you dizzy? Sorry about that. I gotta say, I do like the leaf effect on it. The way she draws up the leaves around her as a particle effect. Like, that's a simple particle effect, but it is adding so much to this 3D model. Anyway, trading. I do need to be able to turn trading on and off per AI. Or per AI. I keep saying AI. Per NPC. Because some NPCs will just not have things to sell you, or they won't want to sell or buy from you. It would seem kind of silly to walk up to the king of a kingdom and then be like, alright, cool, I got like 3 loaves of bread. You got some gold you'll give me for them? Like, can we barter? That seems a little weird. So I do want to be able to turn that off. So let's find our prefab. And one of those things that I just want to attach to the prefab is an NPC script of some kind of controller for the NPC, because we do need to start attaching information to these NPCs. Now an NPC is going to have to be a character, because you can pick a fight with practically any NPC. So already we need the character stats to be attached to it, just in case the player decides to say, I'm going to try and kill everybody in this world, NPCs included. It's just something that I kind of want to be the case. Also, okay, it looked like Visual Studio froze for a moment, and I was about to start freaking out. So we have our NPC parameters, and one of them is going to be the can trade, right? Simple, basic piece of information. Can this NPC trade or not? Or do we want you to be able to trade with them at least? There's our NPC. The character's name is, I don't know, very NPC. NPC's vital to the story. There definitely will be a point where I will probably have the NPC's vital to the story just kick the snot out of you in return if you try and pick a fight with them. Or I guess the other thing I could do is I could find some gimmicky way of saying, you know, oh, you badly hurt the character, and they're taken off to, you know, get help. I don't know. I need to find some way to handle that. That is definitely something to keep in mind. NPCs vital to the story, yeah. I could do what... oh, there was a spaghetti western game that came out recently that actually let you kill the NPCs in the game, and they came back as ghosts. So I could develop a ghost shader, apply that to all the dead NPCs so that you can't kill them again, and then essentially say, cool, they're still going to want to try and progress the story. And maybe they'll have extra quirks now that they're dead. You know, now maybe they'll hate you for what you've done, but they still want you to save their loved one or something. We'll find some way around that. There are definitely mechanical ways we can handle that. I'm just going to put 4s down the board for all her stats because, don't really care a ton. Picking a fight with this character should not really gain you much. And I'm going to leave can trade blank. And what we're going to do is, when we grab the NPC window, on start, I'm actually going to switch this to require an NPC class, because that makes my life a little easier. Probably less casting at bare minimum. Also, let's not copy and paste a function. Our scripted NPC, bit component NPC. There we go. And we're just going to do a on start. If this person exists, or if not exists, if can trade is false, then we just hide the button. So we're going to say transform find child. We know the NPC window has a certain setup, so it shouldn't be hard for us to fix this. At least before I have to take off, because I've only got a couple minutes left. And then I gotta go do real work. Not this fun stuff, unfortunately. That's the header, wrong button. Okay, trade button. So it's action background, action choices. Action background, action choices, trade button. Guys, I won't be around Friday, unfortunately. I've got a wedding where I am a bridesmaid, or I guess it's a bridesman. I don't know. Whatever the term is, I'm going to be out of the area for this weekend, so you're probably not going to see me online. I apologize, but I will be back on Monday with the usual stream. I'm probably going to be up a little earlier on Monday because I'll be excited to get back to it. Sunday, if I can maybe fit a stream in, I'll see if I can do that. But honestly, unfortunately, life has come up, and as it does, I'm going to have to step away from the stream for a little bit. Not long, though. Don't worry, guys. I'll be back. If you want to, you know, catch up on all the other streams, they're on the YouTube channel that is linked below. They're also in the Twitch archive still. Twitch archive holds the last 30-ish days, and I'm coming up on that point soon. So the YouTube channel will soon be the only way to watch it from end to end. But there's a playlist there to make your life a little easier. There we go. Action background, action choices, trade button. Background choices, trade button. Sweet. Okay, let's get this thing out of the scene. And see if that happens to be the case. When I walk up now, hey, no trade button. Sweet. Alright guys, thank you again for joining me. It's been a lot of fun. If this is your first time here, or if you just haven't done it yet, hit that follow button below. Lets me know you're interested in what I'm up to and that I'm kind of going the right direction. I'm always happy to have more folks join me during the stream, and you guys are the ones who kind of drive me to keep moving when I'm feeling a little about continuing on games, which happens to a lot of indie game developers. So you guys are great. Thank you very much for helping me out with that. And also for the help you guys provide through chat. You know, Cybertech, Chakma, and Nicolael, you guys have been a great help today. Thank you very much. Hopefully I will catch all of you next time. Later. Have a good day.